Welcome to season 2 of the Bigger Than You podcast, your go-to weekly podcast that blends energetics and mindset to help you do whatever it takes to bring your vision to life, whilst having fun on the way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. My purpose is to help mission-led business owners and visionaries who want to inspire change by leading the way in a space that otherwise may feel unnerving and too difficult. This is Bigger Than You. Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited about a conversation that we're going to have today with my guest, Christina Christoforou. She is a virtual CFO, which for those of you who don't know, I've just checked with Christina to make sure that I know, and it is Chief Finance Officer. Was that right?
Yep, perfect. It's fine.
And so she is virtual CFO and financial fixer. Like I said, I'm super excited about this conversation. It's going to be amazing. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. Like when we obviously met in real life the other week, it was just the conversation just flowed so well. And I'm really excited now for today.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of good stuff to come out. Okay, so just quickly then, who is Christina? What does she do? So she has 22 years experience. She is FCCA qualified. So that's a qualified accountant.
Yeah, so Chartered Certified Accountant Fellowship.
Yeah. And she works to help people maximize profits and create a legacy business that gives expert entrepreneurs 100K take home pay and builds true wealth. Okay, Christina, I'd love to ask you, first of all, what's your why? Like, why does that drive what you do?
I think it all stems from like being younger and not being so kind of confident, or I've always really struggled with kind of like self-doubt, just not feeling good enough. And finance was like a way for me to become really confident, because with finance, there's always like a right answer. Mm-hmm. And that's what I loved when I was younger. It was like, okay, I know that I got this right. So it's built my confidence. And then as I grew up and did loads and loads of different financial jobs, I just saw that there was a huge market for business owners that weren't quite at like that 10 million level, that weren't in the position to hire someone like my level for like £250,000 a year. And I was like, well, there's this disparity between, if more people had access to this level of financial information, then more people would become millionaires and more people would become financially independent. And, when you are a business owner, like that is your retirement plan, right? Your business is what you're kind of looking to support your lifestyle long term, to hand over to your children, to retire your husband or partner. Like, so that's kind of like why I started doing it. And I honestly, like, you will probably never meet someone that loves finance as much as me. Like, I just love talking about it so much.
And it must feel so good for you, because you take people who are doing really well in their business, but they've not, well, I imagine this is the case, they've not got it sorted. So yeah, the business looks like it's doing amazing, but actually they're not set up for retirement, and because they've got this gap that you help them with. So you take them from that place to a really great place where they have got it sorted personally. Like, there's literally no point having a business that's absolutely flying if you're not going to be able to like retire and live the life of your dreams and like benefit from all that hard work.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, a lot of the time it's people don't realize that they can actually, take more money out of their business than they realize, because just no one is sharing this information, right? You've got an accountant that does your taxes, and generally there's like a big surprise tax bill because accountants they're working with hundreds and even thousands of clients at a time. They can't be in your business. So it's kind of like you and the accountant trying to talk together, but you're not really talking the same language. And then, you get frustrated. And so you kind of aren't really sure on how much you can take out and how your business is operating, because you're only seeing that one line, which is the money coming in. You're not really understanding anything below that part. I like to think of it like an iceberg effect almost. You know, you only kind of see the top above the water, whereas actually underneath there's this whole system of things that's going on. And, you know, it overwhelms people so much, but actually it's really, really simple. And I think the thing that has caught a lot of people out is that there's obviously, you've got in the UK a HMRC, and it's a scary kind of, oh, we don't want the taxman, we don't want to go to prison, those types of things. And so people kind of, and then there's all this like financial jargon floating around, and your accountant, you don't really understand it. And so it just causes overwhelm, frustration, confusion. And actually, it doesn't need to be like that. It's really, really simple. So what I'm trying to do with people is go, okay, like, let me educate you a little bit on the kind of like the words, but really just tell you what they mean, because sometimes people don't align with the word, but once they understand, oh, I can see what this means, like profit as an example. I speak to people a lot of the time and they kind of roughly know what profit is, but they're not really. So I kind of go, it's the amount that you get to keep. Like for every pound that you earn as a sale, it's the amount that you get to keep after everything's gone out. So like if you're keeping 30p for every pound, you've got a 30% profit, you know? And so it's just trying to just take the, like, lift the like
stress away, isn't it?
Yeah.
The overwhelm, the stress, the not feeling confident in that area. And that, like, it's quite good timing actually, this episode, although to be fair, when this goes out, it won't be last week. But so recently did a money mindset episode whereby I talked about your relationship with money, and it matters so much, because if you've got, and I'd love to hear your take on this actually, if you've got a business that's doing really well, but you shy away from taking responsibility for your profit or any area of the things that you help people with, then you're not standing in your power there. And it's going to be affecting things, because, like I always talk about, the energy underneath your actions matter. And if you're avoiding money because you don't feel confident, then you're leaking energy, and it's not empowering, is it? It's not an empowering situation to be in. So definitely, like, get yourself support, learn, educate yourself, and get to a better place where you can feel empowered and that relationship with money changes. And like, yeah, what's your take on that? I know that you're very strategy minded, but do you see a difference in people from when you start working with them to, you know, how they feel around money?
Oh my gosh, yes. Like, I think it's so important, like finance and money. So finance is a huge area within business, right? Like, but it's the area that everyone just kind of like shoves under the carpet, and they're like, oh, you know, I'll just make more and more money. A lot of the clients that come to me are what I call like money making mavens. Their ability to earn money is just phenomenal. Like, they earn money in their sleep, but that's kind of like where it stops. They can earn it. So they end up in this real vicious cycle of earning loads of money, spending loads of money, earning loads of money, spending loads of money. And they kind of never see a way out until they get to the point where, I don't know, generally when clients come to me, there's been like a big event where they've had to, I don't know, pay a huge tax bill, or they've been caught out by something and they're just done, or they're just exhausted to the point of, you know, a lot of the clients that work with me, they are also like 20 years experienced in their industry, and they're just fed up with paying themselves £1,000 a month for generating, but they're generating maybe $500,000 a year in revenue.
Yeah, that must feel so heavy. And also, like, knowing that everybody thinks you're doing amazingly, but you're literally living a lie, because your personal bank account is a very different story.
And it's so stressful, right? It's so stressful to that business owner. And I think what happens is when they start working with me is they realize it's like a partnership. You know, they come into the world, and that's why I only work with like a select number of people at a time, because it is draining on my energy as well, right? Because I have to give a lot to them so that they feel supported, especially in the early stages of working with me, because there's an element of like broken trust, because an accountant has surprised them with a tax bill and they've had to pay, I don't know, 50 grand of tax, and that's wiped out their savings. And there's a lot of beliefs that come with those things and connotations towards the accountant. And it is a mindset shift still. It's just I do it in a different way to how, say, you would do it. It's more, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not a mindset specialist, right? I hold my hands up 100%. I have had my own money mindset beliefs, and I still do to this day. It is a constant, you have to work on these things constantly. And what I was charging 6 years ago versus what I'm charging now is astronomically different, because my perspective and my confidence has changed, and I've seen it. And it's the same with my clients. They'll come to me and they'll be like, they won't even know what they're doing a year in money wise, like revenue, profit, anything. And so the first thing I do is relay that information to them. I give them that clarity and give them that power back to go, hey, just so you know, on your own, you have done astronomically well. And I'll give that back. And that really builds their confidence as a person around money. And once you've kind of broken that barrier down, it's a lot easier to work with that client. And then we start playing with the figures, and they can start seeing them. They're like, oh, it's really that simple. I could be doubling, and they'll come to me and they'll always be like, in the beginning, they're like, I want to double my revenue. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll entertain this conversation for a little while, but really we know what's going to happen. We're not going to double the revenue. We're going to double the profit. And that then means you can pay yourself. But we start with that because that's what everybody relates to. And when they start seeing it and they're like, I don't have to double the revenue to get to this profit level and to be able to pay myself this. And I'm like, no. And then we work it into, okay, well, how many clients does that actually mean new? Or can we upsell the existing clients and the longevity of it or whatever it is? And honestly, it's like when they finish that call, the relief, it's like they're a different person. They're like floating. And I'm sure you must experience it as well with your clients and how you work with it. It's just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm good. I can do this now, and that's the magic that I love,
Yeah, I think what I resonate with there, and I think potentially this might describe them, is outwardly they were super successful. Everybody saw them as super successful, but the situation on the inside was different because the personal bank account, and they felt like shame around that potentially, and very different scenario. But then you help them, you support them to double their profit, and how they feel on the inside comes in alignment with how everybody else sees them. So they do feel as successful as they should, and they do feel as empowered as they should, and all of those things.
Oh my God, I love that. I've never looked at it from that perspective, and I think that's a really beautiful way of kind of showing the power of what you do and what I do and how this kind of helps people.
Yeah, I'd love to know, how did you get to do this work? What's the backstory?
So when I was about 13 or 14, I can't remember the age, but we did work experience at school, and I got into a law firm, and I just did different areas within the legal industry, and one of them was finance, and I just loved it. From that moment, I'd planned to finish my GCSEs, go to college, do an accountancy qualification, and then go into finance. But I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know that basically I didn't do very well in my GCSEs, especially when it came to maths. And at the time, I don't know if I got enough grades to actually go to college. But at the same time, the law firm that I'd worked at had an opening coming up for an accounts junior. And they gave me a chance. They was just like, well, it was kind of like a risk-free chance for them because I'd already worked there. And that's kind of where it all started. And from that, I think I was there 7 or 8 years, and I'd worked within all the different areas. I'd put myself through my accountancy qualification, one of them at the time. And I just thrived in that environment. And honestly, everyone, when I first said I was going to do accounts, everyone was like, oh my gosh, this person is not going to be very good at it. Because I was very, when I was younger, I was quite airy fairy, and I loved singing and things like that. So this was the polar opposite of the creative side of me. I just loved it. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. And I just kind of built it up and up. And then to the point where I was around 30 or something like that. And well, I was actually 21 when I started my first business, but I just didn't have the confidence. The imposter syndrome was high on that part. So I kind of like turned it, like got rid of it, and then just carried on learning and getting my accountancy qualification. And then I just got to the point where I was like, it's now or never, like I've learned everything that I can learn. I can continue down this path and earn really, really good money working just for one person, like one company, or I can kind of like take a bet on myself and give it a whirl. And I did. And 6 years later, and here I am.
Amazing.
So when I first like started my business, I had a lot of like corporate consultancy agreements that I'd built up such a great reputation as like a financial fixer, and I'd like built up teams and stuff like that I just had people kind of contacting me for corporate arrangements. And yeah, I terminated my last agreement. I've had this one client for probably about 3 years, and I was just like, they kind of made some changes, and I was like, I'm actually done. I kind of turned to them and just said like, no, I'm gonna just focus on my stuff. And like all of my business revenue and profitability that I'm making has purely come from my personal brand. And I think that for me was a real achievement, because it's scary betting on yourself in that way, right? I'm an accountant at heart. I never learned how to sell, how to market myself on Instagram. Like I remember the first videos that I was like, oh, hello everybody, how are you? I'm Christina. And so you kind of like evolved over time. And like my personality, I feel like I keep saying to people, it's only now that I fully start to feel like who I am supposed to be, if that makes sense. Like, because I started in corporate from 16, I didn't even know who I was. And I became a corporate version of myself where people were like, you speak too loud, you're too emotional, you're too this, you're too sensitive. And so you kind of shove those things in a corner. You're too friendly with your staff, like you're too friendly with the team. And you kind of like bury those things deep, and you become this corporate persona of yourself. So when I left corporate, I was a very different person to who I am now. And I feel like I'm fully, like I'm still learning, but I'm flourishing in who I actually am.
That's amazing. That's so, so cool. It's like unlearning all of the stuff. Like I've never been in corporate myself, got a teaching background, but in similar ways, really, like you have to be a certain way. And actually that's damaging, really. We should be allowed to just be ourselves. And that's like, it's so cool to hear that, you've come that far. I'd love to go back to where you said about you started your own business and basically like pulled the plug on it because of the imposter syndrome was too much of a big thing for you. How have you got from that point to where you are today? Like anybody who's listening who struggles with imposter syndrome,
listen, imposter syndrome still rears its head with me. It's not like I don't feel like you ever completely get rid of it, but you learn how to manage it, and you learn how to the belief and the overwhelmed feeling doesn't become like, it becomes lesser. You're like, hey, it pops up, you're like, no, shush, be quiet. Like, I know you're not even a thing. I have proven it time and time again. And I think for me, it is there's a guy called Alex Hormozi. He says getting the reps in. And it's getting the reps in to counterbalance that, to prove to yourself, no, this is silly. Like, why am I questioning myself? I think, when I started my business, I was 21, and I wasn't fully, I'd done like a certain qualification that had made me qualified, but not to the level that I am now. And I kind of was just very young, naive. I don't even know that social media was massive back then. I can't really remember. I feel like Facebook was a thing, but yeah, I wasn't ready. And I'm glad that happened, because actually when I came around to doing it the second time, I was ready. Like I knew I had my qualifications. At that point, I'd had 16 years experience within the financial industry. There was pretty much nothing that you could throw at me that I didn't really know. And so it was just the right time for me. Whereas back then, I feel like I don't think it would have lasted the 6 years that I've lasted now.
Yeah. So looking back, do you think it all happened for a reason, like all the timing and everything?
Yeah, I think it was right. Like I needed to go on the learning curve that I went through in the like following, I don't know, 9 years of corporate to get to this point. I learned some incredible learnings, team management, like completely changing the culture of a team and understanding how that impacts the profitability of a business and being able to articulate yourself in these boardrooms with these, and a lot of the time it was like men, and there were really strong characters. And if you meet me, I'm actually really petite, really small, and I always felt really intimidated. So kind of doing that thing, and it helped me also understand, well, who do I actually really want to work with?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I believe it was the right thing to do at the time. And I'm glad that I now look back on it and go, okay, yeah, no, like who I was at 21 was not who I was at 30 when I started my business or what have you. And it's like, you kind of like so much stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. If you are on my wavelength and you're a regular listener, you'll know that I very much talk about energetics and your subconscious mind and all of that. And this is why I'm so excited to have Christina here, because I'm going to ask you, I'm sure you see things very, very differently, Christina. What's your take on expanding your relationship with money, expanding your ability to receive money, all of that jazz? Like, what's your take on it?
I think, I have done a lot of subconscious work. I'm very much a believer of
Yay!
energetics, of money and of life. And I think, you have to be operating within a certain frequency to attract what it is that you want. So like, and that's part I've had to work on a lot on myself, because I've had the kind of strategic, logical, like normal, not normal path. That sounds wrong. Like, I don't mean it in that way. In that the kind of the society path to money, like if that makes sense of, you learn, you earn more as you learn type of thing. But I think it's always been a big thing for me. Like, everyone was always like, when I started, you need to incorporate money mindset. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I am not a money mindset person. I cannot help someone from a money mindset perspective. And it's only as I've been kind of learning and speaking to clients and you're hearing the feedback from them, you're like, actually, I am helping them from a mindset perspective, but in a different way. So when people look at, their energetics and how they feel about their money, like money and stuff like that, I kind of come at it from okay, or like when people go, okay, I want you to visualize your life in 5 years. What is it? What are you doing? What are you waking up doing? Blah, 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 blah. We kind of touch on that, but in a very much, I'm like, okay, what car are you driving? How many kids have you got? Are they going to private school? Where are you living? What's the house look like? That type of thing. And I'm allocating money to it. Okay, cool, car, 100 grand. Kids, like 15 grand a quarter, whatever it is. And so we're building a financial plan like that, but I'm kind of quantifying it by putting it on a piece of paper, on a spreadsheet, and then we're building their life, if that makes sense. So I'm going, okay, this is where you are today, and this is where you want to be in 12 months, which is that lifestyle that you're visualizing. And we've quantified it. So I know how much it's going to cost you. And then we work backwards. So that really then gets clients going. It's like a story I did earlier on my Instagram. It gets them bought in. It's like their emotional investment, their emotional buy-in, because they're like, oh, wow, that's actually achievable, versus what they kind of just had in their mind of what was going on. So that's kind of like my way of expanding clients' money beliefs, money boundaries, and really showing them, actually, this is super achievable to be done. And then we work it all the way back to, well, how many clients does that actually mean? And often it will be like 10 clients for the year. And they're like, well, that's so easy to do. And so it's kind of then just done in their mind. It's like, I don't even need to worry about that anymore. I just need to focus on getting the 10 clients because we've got this plan in place. And a lot of the clients will come to me. Like, I had one client come when they joined me a few years back. They were doing like less than 5 grand a month, and now they're doing 40 grand a month. And now we're having conversations where she's like, in 8 years, I want to be doing 10 million a year in revenue. That person, when they first started with me, she was like, I'm really bad at money. I can't manage my money. Like, I'm so freaking out about it, and to now see that shift to go, yeah, I want to do 10 million.
Yeah. What an evolution. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd love to just reflect back on what you said about you ask them, you get really specific about what car they want to drive, and that building that future picture, and then you quantify it from a subconscious perspective. That's really super helpful, because it's anything that's vague, your subconscious will not help you. It doesn't support you if it's vague. This is why you get so much more done when you actually write down your goals, or if it's a to-do list, but if you write it down, you get your subconscious on board. It works for you. So getting that really super specific visualization with the numbers, you're getting your subconscious on board. So yeah, just wanted to add that in. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, like it's great to hear this, because it's just so reaffirming for me, right? Like, I'm doing it based on my knowledge and understanding of money and how I've seen clients interact with this, but hearing that from you to say that this is helping them from a subconscious perspective, it's just, like, that's all you can want for your clients, right? You want the best for them.
Yeah, definitely. So what does it actually look like once you've built that visualization of what money they need, and working it down to how many extra clients do they need? What's next in the process?
It's basically just implementing it. So when we do this kind of like plan, I'll look at it from a big picture plan to go, okay, in 5 years, they want this, they want that. And then it's like, okay, cool, but we need to know what we need to be doing now. So it's then kind of going, okay, this is our 5 years. I use past information to look at how the trends within their business of how accelerated their growth has been. I also understand them from their current perspective, because maybe they've had astronomical growth and now they're tired. Now they're ready. They're like, Christina, I can't keep going like this. I'm exhausted. I just want to be with my family. And you're like, okay, cool. So let's slow the growth down. Let's build those foundations to go, well, how can we get to that point without you losing the love for your business? And how can we inject the love back into your business and the enthusiasm back into your business? So we will look at what, for the first year, maybe we'll do a bit of a slower growth to get them to the foundation point where they can hire more people. They've got a bigger team, but those team are really clear on what it is that they're doing versus, hey, just got a VA doing everything within their business. It's really about removing that person and letting the owner of the business, because a lot of the clients that I work with, they are the kind of the center focal point. So, if I work with an aesthetics doctor, they're the person that's delivering a lot of the treatments. And so you kind of have to work around that to go, well, how can we just get that person only focused on the area that they love and get the support all around them? And that's the kind of thing that we look at. And we do that initially over a 12-month basis. So we will look month by month, and every month we're checking in. Did what we predict actually happen? If yes, perfect. Should we have gone higher? Because was it really easy? If it didn't happen, cool. Why? Why didn't it happen? What went on during the month to not allow that to happen? And often in the beginning, it's because they've got excited and they've spent loads of money on this new thing, and they're not used to working in a partnership with me. Because a lot of my clients, that when we work really well together, when we're like, it's working like an engine, is when they go, hey, Christina, this new thing has just come up. I'm thinking about putting the money into it. What's your thoughts? And we will talk it through. But a lot of the time, because they're money-making mavens, they're just like, full steam ahead. I'm just going to invest the money. And that pushes the plan out. So you then don't have the consistency. But after a while, the consistency that starts to come, and they start seeing that growth again. And, one of my clients, now she only works 3 days a week, and she loves her life, right? So it's that. And now we're like, she's had that time to rest, if that makes sense. And that has sparked the creativity back into her and what she wants and the vision for her business. So now we're ready to go again. But we're in a position where we've got a lot of cash, we've got a lot of profit, and she's not working loads of hours. So we have the capacity to move that forward and take that big action.
Yeah,
that's kind of
amazing. Oh, so exciting. I can tell that you love what you do. What do you wish that everybody knew? You know, if you're speaking to, imagine you were doing a live to your community on Instagram or whatever. What's the one thing that you wish everybody knew when it comes to money?
They understood how important finance actually is for their business and their growth. I think so many people, especially within the online community, get so bought into, oh, this person's earning 100 grand a month and I want to be earning. They're so bought into the quick wins. They forget that really the long term, slow, sustainable, and it doesn't even have to be slow, but sustainable growth is the real substance within the business, right? A lot of people start the business, they just want to earn a lot of money, but they don't really know finance, and they kind of just avoid finance, and they put it down to the last thing on the pile until there is a point where the finance is just like, fuck you, I'm going to mess up your life. And at that point they're like, oh my God. And at that point, sometimes it's irreparable. I can't do anything. Like, I'm not a magician. And that's such a shame because they've worked so hard to get to that point, but they have just leveraged themselves too far and we can't bring it back. So one thing I would say is give finance and money the respect it deserves, because if you start respecting it, it will respect you. You know, the whole saying of, if you look after the pennies, they'll look after the pounds, and it's that compound effect.
Yeah, 100%. And like, the signs are always there. This is what I believe. Universe gives you lessons. In any situation in your life at the moment, you can look at it and say, what's this trying to teach me? It's a mirror of what's going on inside. And so you won't get to a place where you're like, fuck, this tax bill's come and I'm not going to be able to carry on anymore. That's not going to happen out of the blue. Even if you look, the signs would have been there before that you need to manage your money. So do not hide away from it. Take responsibility from it, I think is the message, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's so empowering when you do like take that responsibility, and no one can take that away from you, right? Like, I think a huge skill to learn is obviously how to make money. But when you also learn how to manage it, then you will never be in financial difficulty because you can always earn it and you can always manage it. You know, there's two real core skills that as business owners that I think everyone needs.
Like, if you're listening and you know that you're really not great at managing your money, what's the biggest thing that you could say to help somebody start to manage their money better?
Accept that you aren't good at it because no one's taught you. But that is
it's not your fault.
Yeah, it's not your fault, and it's not a reflection of you as a business owner or as a person, right? I wasn't good at sales because I'd never learned it, right? Yeah. It's the same. Everybody has their area, and it's okay to ask for help. And I think a lot of people feel a bit of shame around it. Listen, you come to me, there is no judgment. I do not care what has happened. All I care about is that you are taking the action to do this and take the steps for yourself. I think, you know, if you're not in a position to work with somebody, just take the time and go through your money, go through your bank statements, understand what's actually happening, because you'll be able to do this. It's really not a complex area. It's just that we built it up in our mind to be a complex area, and the procrastination has made it bigger.
100%. And like, that literally is a fact. When we are nervous about doing something, the brain, like, you don't hesitate when you go and brush your teeth. So the brain's like, red flags don't kick in. But if you are hesitating, putting something off, the brain's like, oh, you're putting this off, red flag. And that's its cue to magnify the risk. And so you put it off more. And when you just recognize it, it's exactly the same concept of the anticipation of doing something is always so much worse than actually doing it. When you realize that, you can be like, right, okay, I'm going to put my big girl pants on or my big boy pants on, and I'm actually going to set some time aside to do this. And once you actually start to, whatever it is, look at your bank statements or stop hiding away from money or whatever it is, when you actually decide to start, you'll be like, oh, this is fine. Yeah, I'm going to carry on.
You know, I've been doing this a long time and I've not had anybody take the responsibility for their money and think, well, that was horrible, I never want to do that again. Actually, it does the complete opposite. And it gives you a sigh of relief. It takes that weight off your shoulders that's been weighing, and you don't even realize it's weighing on you so heavily. But it takes that weight off, and you're like, oh, actually, it's much more manageable than I thought. And if I do this, and you're very resourceful as a person, you have to learn to like trust that you're okay, and that's probably.
Yeah, I love that so much. And so as you're listening, I'd love for you to just take a moment to reflect and decide something to do, something that you have been putting off, or something that you should take responsibility for in your business, and actually set some time to do that as soon as you can, whether that's today, tomorrow, or even the weekend, whatever it is. Just commit to it, because then you've taken this from being in a podcast episode that you're just passively listening to actually making a change. And I would love that for you. So yeah, just take a moment now to reflect on what is it that you kind of need to do that you've been putting off, or what do you need to learn about money, or whatever it is. Just decide when you're going to do that and commit to it. Thank you, Christina. Is there anything left unsaid, do you think?
No, I feel like we've covered, we could go on for hours, but I feel like that's the real thing. And just reiterating what you said, like, just start.
Start. Yeah.
The worst part is thinking about starting, but just start. And I love the saying, it's by Brian Tracy, and he talks about, just tell yourself, I commit to my commitments, because that is what you need to do. It's like anywhere, it's like fitness, it's eating healthy, it's all of those things. If you commit to your commitments, you're already making a start.
Yeah, love it. Brilliant. Thank you, Christina. Where can people find you?
Instagram is probably the best place, which is just my name, at Christina Christoforou. Realize it's a long name, but hopefully there'll be somewhere that you can type that
in the show notes. Yeah. And is there anything you'd like to share with the audience?
I think there's plenty of free resources, including, I think one of the best resources that I've got out there at the moment, which is completely free, is my Profit and Thrive webinar. And it's all to do with how you can pay yourself 100K within the next 12 months without signing a significant amount of more clients. I think it's really good. It gives you a really good insight into how I work with clients, and how there's a lot of actionable steps that you can do just from that webinar alone.
Brilliant. And is that worth watching if you are nowhere near that place in your business? Are there tips in there that you could still take away if you're maybe making 5K months or 10K months, whatever?
100%. The way that I talk about it is, it's all about looking at how you can do it profitably first, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love it. And also, just a tip, to share kind of my mindset, is I love to always try and stretch myself by getting in these spaces. For example, even if you'd have said no then, and this wasn't my podcast and I was listening, I would have been like, oh, I want to watch that anyway, because that's going to expand my mind and to know what's possible for me for the future. So yeah, it's just a kind of invitation to give yourself those options, and those in life and in your business in general, the option to expand what's available to you just by putting yourself in those places.
Absolutely. I think growth is the key thing. And if you're a business owner, then you probably want to grow, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christina.
Thank you very much.
See you all next week, guys. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Bigger Than You podcast. If you found it valuable, please forward it to others who you think might benefit from listening, and be sure to subscribe to get the new episodes when they release. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave a rating or a review, as it really helps the show to grow. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jenna Holloway, or on TikTok and Instagram, and my handle is @IamJennaHolloway. And you can find links to whatever we cover in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.